will soon be told. What at times he was to me must here be said. Aside from those more obvious considerations touching Moby Dick, which could awaken some alarm in any man's soul, there was another thought, or rather vague, nameless horror concerning him, which at times, by its intensity, completely overpowered all the rest. And yet so mystical was it, that I almost despair of putting it in a comprehensible form. It was the whiteness of the whale that above all things appalled me.
Call me Ishmael. Some years ago, never mind how long precisely, having little or no money in my purse and nothing particular to interest me on shore, I thought I would sail about a little and see the watery part of the world. Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul, whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet, then I account it high time to get to sea as soon as I can. When I say that I am in the habit of going to sea whenever I begin to grow hazy about the eyes and overcautious of my lungs, I don't mean that I ever go as a passenger. No. When I go to sea, I go as a simple sailor, right before the mast, plumb down into the forecastle, aloft there to the royal masthead. True, the mates rather order me about some, and make me jump from spar to spar like a grasshopper in a May meadow. And that kind of treatment touches one's sense of honor, especially if just previous to putting your hand into the tar pot, you've been lording it as a country schoolmaster. The transition is a keen one, I assure you, from schoolmaster to sailor. Doubtless this formed part of the grand program of Providence that was drawn up for me a long time ago. Why, after having repeatedly smelt the sea as a merchant sailor, I should now take it into my head to go on a whaling voyage, this the invisible police officer of the fates, who watches me constantly, who secretly dogs me, and influences me in some unaccountable way, he can answer better than anyone else. Because of these things, then, the whaling voyage was welcome. The great floodgates of the wonder world swung open, and in the wild conceits that swayed me to my purpose, there floated into my inmost soul endless processions of the whale. And midmost of them all, one grand hooded phantom, like a snow hill in the air. Moby Dick.
Come here.
New Bedford, Massachusetts. Such dreary streets. Blocks of blackness, not houses on either side. And here and there a candle moving about in a tomb. The Spouter Inn, Peter Coffin. Coffin? Spouter? Who would rather not be in Sumatra than here? Go down to the fiery pit itself to keep out this frost. But no more of this blubbering now, Ishmael. We are going a-whaling, and there's plenty of blubbering yet to come. Let's scrape the ice from our frosted feet and see what sort of place this Spouter Inn may be.
A room for the night. Oh, the house is full, not a bed unoccupied.
Oh.
Unless you ain't no objections to sharing a harpooner's blanket.
Hmm?
I suppose you are going a whaling, so you'd better get used to that sort of thing.
I don't like sleeping two in a bed, but it depends on who the harpooner might be.
Oh, him? Oh, he's a dark-complexioned chap. He eats nothing but steaks. And he likes them rare.
Does he always keep such late hours?
No, but tonight he went out to peddling. And maybe he can't sell his head.
Can't sell his head? Do you pretend to say, landlord, that this harpooner is actually engaged this blessed night in peddling his head around the town?
That is precisely it. And I told him he couldn't sell it here, as the market is overstocked already.
Landlord, I demand you speak out and tell me whether I shall be in all respects safe to spend the night with this harpooner. I've no intention of sleeping with a madman.
Now, be easy, be easy. This here harpooner has just arrived from the South Seas, where he brought up a lot of embalmed New Zealand heads. And he sold them all of them but one. And that one he's trying to sell tonight, 'cause tomorrow's Sunday, and it would not do to be selling human heads about the streets when folks is going to church.
Oh.
No man prefers sleeping two in a bed, not even with your own brother. I don't know how it is, but people like to be private when they're sleeping. And when it comes to sleeping with an unknown stranger, in a strange inn, in a strange town, and that stranger a harpooner, then your objections indefinitely multiply.
Ay, langi puas. Ele rolo puas ngene. El lemol fasa. El leaf malainga.
It's him. The harpooner. Look at that face. A dark purplish-yellow color with large black squares tattooed on it. No hair on his head.
Too much.
Nothing but a small scalp knot twisted on his forehead. And the same squares tattooed all over his body.
Next time, no pearls to swine.
A peddler of heads? What if he takes a fancy to mine?
Hoki, hoki, tonu mai e tainei te tau. Go ahead, digger!
Landlord!
For
God's sake! Peter Coffin! Peter Coffin!
Don't be afraid now.
You
Queequeg here, we wouldn't harm a hair on your head.
Why didn't you tell me he was a cannibal?
Well, didn't I say he was peddling heads around town?
Oh, yes, but I didn't realize that
Understand now. You get in bed. Share bed. Good.
There. You see, he means you no harm.
Well, tell him to stash his tomahawk there, or pipe, or whatever you call it. Tell him to stop smoking it, and I will turn in with him. I don't fancy having a man smoking in bed with me. It's dangerous. Besides, I ain't insured.
Now, are you staying or no?
Well, at least he's a clean enough looking cannibal. Better sleep with a sober cannibal than a drunken Christian, I suppose.
There's an essence. Whiteness. It's not so much a color as the visible absence of color. And at the same time, the most concrete of all colors. Is it for these reasons that there's such a dumb blankness, full of meaning, in a landscape of snows? A colorless all-color of atheism from which we shrink? It is this elusive quality which causes the thought of whiteness, divorced from the more kindly associations, to heighten our terror to the furthest bounds. And of all these things, Moby Dick was the symbol.
Upon waking next morning about daylight, I found Queequeg's arm thrown over me in the most loving and affectionate manner. You would almost thought I had been his wife. And this arm of his, tattooed all over with an interminable labyrinth of a design, no two parts of which were of one precise shade, this same arm of his, I say, looked for all the world like a strip of the same patchwork quilt we slept under. I could hardly tell his arm from the quilt. And it was only by the sense of weight and pressure that I could tell that Queequeg was hugging me. I tried to move his arm, unlock his bridegroom clasp, yet sleeping as he was, he still hugged me tightly, as though nothing but death could part us. Queequeg. In the name of goodness, Queequeg, wake up! Wake up! Wake up!
Oh, man, nail neaso.
The tattooing of Queequeg's body had been the work of a prophet and seer of his South Seas island, who, by those hieroglyphic marks, had written out on his body a complete theory of the heavens and the earth, and a mystical treatise on the art of attaining truth, so that Queequeg, in his own proper person, was a riddle to unfold, a wondrous work in one volume, but whose mysteries not even he himself could read, though his own live heart beat against them. And these mysteries were therefore destined in the end to molder away with the living parchment on which they were inscribed, and so be unsolved in the end.
Cheap boots. Yes, how malal boots.
Oh, I'm guilty of great rudeness. I'm staring at him from the bed, watching all his toilet motions. For the time, my curiosity is getting the better of my breeding. You don't see a man like Queequeg every day. He's a creature in the transition state, neither caterpillar nor butterfly. Just civilized enough to show off his outlandishness in the strangest possible manner. I mean, look at him, walking around with nothing else on but his hat and boots.
Queequeg. Queequeg, could you hurry up with your toilette, perhaps?
Captain.
Could you please?
Good. Whale.
Could you please?
Captain, good.
Could you get into your? Can you get your pants on as soon as possible? While he lathered his face, I was wondering where he kept his razor, when lo and behold, he takes the harpoon from the bed corner, unsheathes the head, and striding up to the bit of mirror against the wall, begins a vigorous scraping, or rather, harpooning of his cheeks. Afterwards, I wondered less at this operation when I came to know of what fine steel the head of a harpoon is made, and how exceedingly sharp the long, straight edges are always kept.
Johnny, come in for dinner. Johnny.
Nantucket, Massachusetts. Take out your map and look at it. See what a real corner of the world it occupies. How it stands here, way offshore. All beach, without a background. What wonder, then, that these Nantucketers, born on a beach, should take to the sea for a livelihood.
These sea hermits have overrun and conquered the watery world like so many Alexanders, parceling out among them the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans. Let America add Mexico to Texas. Let the English overswarm all India. 2/3 of this globe are the Nantucketers. The sea is his. He owns it, other seamen having only a right-of-way through it. Are you the captain of the Pequod?
I'm Captain Bildad, the ship's owner. What dost thou want, young man?
I was thinking of shipping.
Oh, thou wast thou? I see thou art no Nantucketer. Dost know nothing at all about whaling?
Nothing, sir, but I've no doubt I shall soon learn.
Oh, I want to see what whaling is, huh? Have you clapped eyes on Captain Ahab?
Who's Captain Ahab?
Ahab is the captain of the Pequod. He's a grand, ungodly, godlike man, Captain Ahab. Doesn't speak much, but when he does speak, you may well listen. Mark ye, be forewarned. Ahab's above the common. Ahab of the Bible, thou knowest, was a crowned king.
And a very vile one. When that wicked king was slain, the dogs licked up his blood.
Oh, look ye, never say that on board the Pequod. Clap eye on Captain Ahab, young man, and thou wilt find that he has only one leg. The other one was devoured, chewed up, crunched by the monstrousest palmacetti whale that ever chipped a boat. And thou, art thou the man to pitch a harpoon down a live whale's throat and then jump after it? Answer, quick!
I am, sir, if it should be positively indispensable to do so, which I don't take to be the fact.
Well, thou mayest as well sign the papers right off. Come along with ye.
I was already aware that in the whaling business they paid no wages. But all hands, including the captain, received certain shares of the profits called lays, and that these lays were proportioned to the degree of importance pertaining to the respective duties of the ship's company. Being a green hand at whaling, my own lay would not be very large, perhaps the 275th. That is, the 275th part of the clear net proceeds of the voyage, whatever that might eventually amount to. I have a friend with me who wants a ship too.
Oh, has he ever whaled, attending?
Killed more whales than I can count.
Quick-wag! Bloody mission. Teach the Pequod eyes closed, now closed, still land. Huh?
What's this? A cannibal? I let no cannibals aboard my ship. This is a Quaker ship, no cannibals. You hear me? Never. Unless they can produce their papers.
They Ishmael will live on a world with Siva.
Papers? What do you mean by that, Captain Bildad?
I mean, he must show that he's been converted.
Yeah.
Son of darkness, art thou at present in communion with any Christian church?
What?
Why, he's a member of the First Congregational Church, the great and everlasting first congregation of this whole worshiping world. We all belong to that.
Well, he hasn't been baptized, right? Or it would have washed some of that devil's blue off his face. By the great anchor, what a harpoon he's got there. Quahog, did you ever strike a whale with that?
Captain, you see small drop tar on barrel there? Suppose him whale's eye. One dead whale, Captain.
By a flood, borne back to that wondrous period before time began, when wedged bastions of ice pressed hard upon what are now the tropics. And in all the 25,000 miles of this world's circumference, not an inhabitable hand's breadth of land was visible. Then the whole world belonged to the whale, and king of creation, he left his wake along the present lines of the Andes and the Himalayas. Who can show a pedigree like Leviathan? Ahab's harpoon had shed older blood than the pharaohs. Methuselah seems a schoolboy. I look around to shake hands with Shem. I am horror-struck at the unspeakable terrors of the whale, which, having existed before all time, will go on existing after all humane ages are over.
Catus. That's Latin for whale.
Catus. Latin.
World. Anglo-Saxon.
Anglo.
Wald. Danish. Dutch. Val. Swedish.
Swedish.
No. Whale. Icelandic. Baleine. French. Spanish. It's ballena.
Pikinui.
What's that?
Fiji.
And for you?
Pihi nui nui.
Piki.
Pihi.
Pihi.
Nui nui.
Nui nui.
Whale.
Whale. Whale.
Shipmates. Have you shipped in that ship?
If you mean the Pequod there, yes. We just signed the contracts.
Anything written down there about your soul?
About what?
You haven't seen Old Thunder yet, have you?
Who's Old Thunder?
Captain Ahab.
He's sick, they say, but he'll be all right again before long.
All right again before long.
I know all about the loss of his leg.
All about it. You sure you do? All?
Pretty sure.
Well, what's signed is signed. And some sailors or other must go with them, I suppose, as well you as any other men. God pity you. Morning to you, shipmates. Morning. Sorry I stopped you.
Stop. Tell me your name, will you?
Elijah.
I think we have hugely mistaken this matter of life and death. I think that what they call my shadow here on earth is my true substance. I think that in looking at things spiritual, we are too much like oysters observing the sun through the water, and thinking that thick water the thinnest of air. Take my body who will, take it, I say. It is not me.
It was Queequeg's Ramadan, or time of fasting and humiliation, and I chose not to disturb him till nightfall. For I cherish the greatest respect towards everybody's religious obligations, never mind how comical. I say we good Presbyterian Christians should be charitable in these things, and not fancy ourselves so vastly superior to other mortals, pagans and what-not, because of their half-crazy conceits on these subjects. In the middle of the floor squatted Queequeg, altogether cool and self-collected, his little black idol yo-yo on top of his head.
For heaven's sake, Queequeg, get up and shake yourself. Go have some supper. You can't go on fasting forever. You'll starve. You'll kill yourself. Queequeg! Queequeg!
Somehow I dropped off at last, and knew nothing more till break of day. As soon as the first glimpse of the sun entered the window, up stood Queequeg, limped towards me where I lay, pressed his forehead against mine, and said his Ramadan was over. Now, when a man's religion becomes really frantic, when it makes this earth of ours an uncomfortable inn to lodge in, then I think it high time to take that individual aside and argue the point with him. Get into bed now, lie here, and listen to me. Now look here. All these Lents and Ramadans and prolonged squatting in cold, cheerless rooms are bad for your health, useless for the soul, opposed to all the obvious laws of hygiene and common sense. Fasting makes the body cave in and the spirit cave in, and the only result of all this is a case of dyspepsia. You don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? Dyspepsia, stomachache. Do you know what a stomachache is?
Understand now.
Haven't you ever had a stomachache, Queequeg?
One time only. Great battle on Queequeg Island. My father king. We defeat enemy. Cook and eat them.
No more, Queequeg. That'll
One
do.
enemy, son of other king, not well cooked. He had bad stomachache. Queequeg eat him stomachache.
Oh, that's enough. That's enough, please.
Oh, I have also bad heart. Queequeg take blood from enemy heart, mix with coconut milk, and feel very bad.
Oh.
But still go on eating hands and feet until stomach okay. But now,
that's enough. In the town, there stands a whaleman's chapel, and few are the moody fishermen shortly bound for the Indian Ocean or Pacific who fail to make a Sunday visit to the spot. The walls are covered with marble tablets in memory of those whalemen lost at sea, the congregation made up of their widows and relatives. The chaplain, Father Mapple, is a great favorite among these people. He was a sailor and a harpooner in his youth, but for many years now has dedicated his life to the ministry.
Where is he?
He'll be here all
Starboard, gangway there. Side away to larboard. Larboard, gangway to starboard.
The extremely high pulpit here has no stairs, but rather a perpendicular side ladder, like those used in mounting a ship from a boat at sea. Hand over hand, Father Mapple now mounts the rungs, as if ascending the main top of his vessel. As if the world were a ship on its passage out, and this pulpit were its prow.
Midships. Midships. Beloved shipmates, open to the last verse of the first chapter of Jonah. And God had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah. What is this lesson that the book of Jonah teaches? If we obey God, we must disobey ourselves. And it is in disobeying ourselves wherein the hardness of obeying God consists. With this sin of disobedience in him, never mind now what God commanded him to do. Jonah flouts at God by seeking to flee from him and boards a ship bound for Tarshish. That's the modern city of Cadiz in Spain. Hoping to flee worldwide from God. Miserable man. With slouched hat and guilty eye, skulking from his God. And now the time of the tide has come. The ship casts off her cables. That ship, my friends, is the first of recorded smugglers. The contraband is Jonah. But the sea rebels. It will not bear the wicked burden. A dreadful storm comes on. The ship is likely to break. Wretched Jonah cries out to the crew to cast him forth into the sea. And now, behold, Jonah taken up as an anchor and dropped overboard. When instantly an oily calmness floats out from the east, and the sea is still. As Jonah carries down the storm with him, leaving smooth water behind. He scarce heeds the moment when he drops into the yawning jaws awaiting him, and the whale snaps to all his ivory teeth like so many bolts upon his prison. And here, shipmates, is true and faithful repentance. Jonah feels that his dreadful punishment is just. And how pleasing to God was this conduct in Jonah is shown in his eventual deliverance from the sea and the whale.
Aina hia mai ka puana, e maki no king kalakoa, e huri mai ko makai au, he ala, he ala, he ala.
Shipmates, I place Jonah before you as a model of Old Testament repentance. Jonah did the Almighty's bidding. And what was that, shipmates? To preach the truth to the face of falsehood.
Hey Allah, hey Allah, hey Allah.
This, shipmates, is Jonah's lesson. Delight is to him who gives no quarter in the truth, and kills, burns, and destroys all sin, though he pluck it out from under the robes of senators and judges. Delight is to him who acknowledges no law or Lord but the Lord his God, and is only a patriot to heaven.
You cannot hide the soul. Returning from the chapel, I found Queequeg on a bench before the fire, with his feet on the stove hearth, lighting up his tomahawk, and then holding close up to his face his little Negro idol yo-yo.
Now, I'm a good Christian, born and bred in the bosom of the infallible Presbyterian Church. But I'll try a pagan friend, since Christian kindness is proof but hollow courtesy. There's a certain lofty bearing about the pagan, which even his uncouthness can't altogether maim. There he sits, his very indifference speaking a nature without civilized hypocrisies.
Smoke?
Thanks, but I'm not a smoking man.
Smoke?
Yes.
Like this.
I'm beginning to be sensible to strange feelings. Something's melting in me. My splintered heart and maddened hand are no longer turned against the wolfish world. This soothing savage has redeemed me.
Better. Sleep again in same bed. Good?
Yes. When our smoke was over, Queequeg pressed his forehead against mine, clasped me round the waist, and said that henceforth we were married, meaning, in his country's phrase, that we were bosom friends. He would gladly die for me, if need should be.
Po kare kare ana.
Po kare kare ana.
Nawaya
Nauraya.
Nawaya Autero.
Now what?
Nawaya
Autero.
Ah.
I'm not going to remember that. I'll try it again.
Eh.
Queequeg, you're. I'm not musical, Queequeg.
Oh.
I'll try.
Let's see. Easy way. You listen.
Oh.
Po kare kare ana. Nawaya Autero. Fiti atte koe hine. Ha ine anna e.
See how elastic our stiff prejudices grow when love once comes to bend them. For now, I'd like nothing better than to have Queequeg smoking by me, even in bed, because he seems so full of serene household joy that. Thus we lie together in our heart's honeymoon, Queequeg and I,
Teaching a stone how to
a
dance.
cozy, loving pair.
O kare kare ana na wayar o tero ha iti ate kore ine hare ine anna e.
Hey.
Good.
Thank you.
Hey, mate, pass me that fork, will you? I got a slice next to this one. Yeah, give me the
A day or two passed, and there was great activity aboard the Pequod. Not only were the old sails being mended, but new sails were coming on board, and bolts of canvas and coils of rigging. In short, everything showed that the ship's preparations were hurrying to a close. It must be remembered that whaling vessels are exposed to accidents of all kinds, hence the spare boats, spare lines and harpoons, spare everything almost, except a spare captain. If I had been downright honest with myself, I would have seen very plainly in my heart that I did but half fancy being committed this way to so long a voyage without once laying my eyes on the man who was to be the absolute dictator of it.
Where can I find Captain Ahab?
And what dost thou want of Captain Ahab? It's all right enough. Thou hast signed thy name, thou art shipped. There's no turning back.
Yes, but I should still like to see him.
Sons of Ishmael! Blood and thunder, jump! Man the capstan!
At last the anchor was up, the sails were set, and off we glided.
Away! Away!
Goodbye. God bless ye and have ye in his holy keeping, men. I hope you'll have fine weather now so that Captain Ahab may soon be moving among ye. Don't whale it too much on the Lord's Day, but don't miss a fair chance either. Be careful with the butter, Mr. Starbuck. 20 cents a pound it was. If ye touch at the islands, Mr. Stubb, beware of fornication. Goodbye! Goodbye!
It was a sharp, cold Christmas. And as the short northern day merged into night, we found ourselves almost broad upon the wintry ocean, whose freezing spray cased us in ice. We gave 3 heavy-hearted cheers and blindly plunged like fate into the lone Atlantic. Although to landsmen in general, the native inhabitants of the seas have ever been regarded with emotions unspeakably unsocial and repelling, although we know the sea to be an everlasting terra incognita, so that Columbus sailed over numberless unknown worlds to discover his one superficial western one, although but a moment's consideration will teach that however baby man may brag of his science and skill, although forever and forever to the crack of doom the sea will insult and murder him, nevertheless, for all this, man has lost that aboriginal sense of the full awfulness of the sea. Foolish mortals. Noah's flood is not yet subsided. It still covers 2/3 of this fair world. Captain Ahab was inaccessible. Though nominally included in the census of Christendom, he was still an alien to it. He lived in this world as the last of the grizzly bears lived in settled Missouri, burying himself in the hollow of a tree, living out the winter there, sucking his own paws. So, in his inclement, howling old age, Ahab's soul, shut up in the caved trunk of his body, fed upon the sullen paws of his gloom.
Mr. Starbuck?
The chief mate of the Pequod was Starbuck, a long, earnest man, and a Quaker by descent.
I will have no man in my boat who is not afraid of a whale. I am here in this critical ocean to kill whales for my living, and not to be killed by them for theirs. Mr. Stubb!
Stubb was the second mate. Good-humored, easy, and careless, he presided over the whale boat as if the most deadly encounter were but a dinner, and his crew all invited guests. Long usage had, for this Stubb, converted the jaws of death into an easy chair.
Masthead there! Look sharp, all of you! There are whales hereabouts. If you see a white one, split your lungs for him! Mr. Flask!
The third mate was Flask, who somehow seemed to think that the great Leviathans had personally and hereditarily affronted him, and therefore it was a point of honor with him to destroy them whenever encountered.
Sing out and say something, my hearties! Roar and pull, my thunderbolts! Beats me! Beats me on their blackbacks, boys! Do that for me and I'll sign over to you, my plantation boys! Including wife and children, boys!
For several days after leaving Nantucket, nothing above hatches was seen of Captain Ahab. The three mates seemed to be the only commanders of the ship. Yet their supreme lord and dictator was there, below, though hitherto unseen by any eyes not permitted to penetrate into the now sacred retreat of the cabin. Some time elapsed, and ice and icebergs all astern, the Pequod now went rolling through the bright Quito spring. By every degree and minute of latitude we sailed, we gradually left that merciless winter and all its intolerable weather behind us. I mounted to the deck at the call of the forenoon watch. Upon each side of the Pequod's quarterdeck, there was an auger hole, bored about half an inch or so into the plank. His bone legs steadied in that hole, one arm elevated and holding by a shroud, looking straight out beyond the ship's ever-pitching prow, stood Captain Ahab.
Captain Ahab, sir.
Mr. Stubb?
The mate, sir. We've been talking amongst ourselves, and...
What is it, man?
Captain Ahab, may you be pleased to walk the planks up and down, night and day, as you do, and...
Well?
Might there not be some way of muffling the infernal noise of your ivory leg there, sir? And perhaps inserting a globe of wax into the heel?
Down, dog and kennel!
But I'll not be spoken to that way, sir. I do less than half like it,
Avast!
sir. And not tamely be called a dog, sir.
Then be called 10 times a donkey and a mule and an ass! Or be gone or I'll clear the world of thee!
I was never so served before without giving a hard blow for it.
Avast!
E tele tanata I langi e le fifia le fasingo le big nui.
As Queequeg and I are now fairly embarked in this business of whaling, and as this business of whaling has somehow come to be regarded among you landsmen as a rather unpoetical and disreputable pursuit, therefore I am all anxiety to convince you, landsmen, of the injustice you do us hunters of whales. Doubtless one leading reason why the world declines honoring us whalemen is that they think our vocation amounts to a butchering sort of business. Butchers we are, it's true. But also butchers of the bloodiest badge are those military commanders whom you invariably delight to honor.
More honor.
What slippery decks of a whale ship are comparable to the unspeakable carrion of those battlefields from which so many soldiers return to the applause of women?
They butcher too.
For many years past, the whale ship has been the pioneer in ferreting out the remotest and least known parts of the earth. Let American and European men of war fire salutes to the honor and glory of the whale ship, which originally showed them the way to the far reaches of the South Seas. And though the world scoffs at us whale hunters, yet it pays us the profoundest homage. For all the tapers, lamps, and candles that burn round the globe burn with whale oil, as so many shrines to our glory. Another thing, think of this, you loyal Britons. What kind of oil is used at the coronations of your kings and queens? Certainly it cannot be olive oil, nor macassar oil, nor castor oil, nor bear's oil, nor train oil, nor cod liver oil. What then can it possibly be but sperm oil, in all its unmanufactured, unpolluted state, the sweetest of all oils?
What shall I say to these men to grasp? I make them will this, the same way I will it. I make them want it.
Ahab had purposely sailed upon the present voyage with the one, only, and all-engrossing object of hunting the white whale. Had any one of his old acquaintances on shore but half dreamed what was lurking in him then, how soon would their righteous souls have wrenched the ship from him? Unlike him, they were only bent on profitable cruises, the profit to be counted down in dollars from the mint. All that most maddens and torments, all the subtle demonisms of life were visibly personified in Moby Dick. Ahab piled upon the whale's white hump the sum of all the rage and hate felt by his whole race, from Adam down. Ahab's monomania did not arise at the instant of his bodily dismemberment. Yet, when his collision with Moby Dick forced him to turn towards home, Ahab and his anguish lay stretched together in one hammock for long months of days and weeks, rounding in midwinter that dreary, howling Patagonian cape. Then it was that his torn body and gashed soul bled into one another, and so interfusing, made him mad. Such vital strength yet lurked in him, and was moreover intensified by his delirium, that his mates were forced to lace him fast, even there as he sailed, raving in his hammock. In a straitjacket now, he swung to the mad rockings of the gales. By the end of that voyage, Ahab's full lunacy had not subsided, but it contracted, and not one jot of his great natural intellect had perished. So well did he now succeed in dissembling, that when with ivory leg he stepped ashore at last, no Nantucketer thought him otherwise but naturally grieved. And so too they thought to explain the moodiness which ever afterwards sat brooding on him right up to the very day of the Pequod's sailing on its present voyage.
Mastheads there, come down! Mr. Starbuck, Mr. Stubb, Mr. Glass, send everybody aft.
Ahab is the captain of the Pequod. He's a grand, ungodly, godlike man, Captain Ahab. Doesn't speak much, but when he does speak, you may well listen.
Well, what's signed is signed, and some sailor's brother must go with him, I suppose. As well you as any other men, God pity you.
And not tamely be called a dog, sir. What do you do when you see a whale, men?
Sing out for him! There she blows! Sing out for him! There she blows!
Good! Now what do you do next, men?
Lower away and after him! Man the whaleboat! Lower away and after him! Man the whaleboat!
And what tune is it you pull to, men?
A dead whale or a stone boat!
Ha! Now, those of you who've sailed the Pequod before have heard me give orders about a white whale. Looky, you see this Spanish ounce of gold? It is a $16 piece, men. Do you see it? Carpenter, I'll nail this doubloon to the masthead. Whosoever of ye raises me a white-headed whale with a wrinkled brow and a crooked jaw, whosoever of you raises him with 3 holes punctured in his starboard fluke, he shall have this gold doubloon, my boys. It's a white whale, I say, a white whale. Skin your eyes for him and look sharp for white water. If you see but a bubble, sing out!
Have in him 1, 2, many irons already, Captain? All twisted every way? Queequeg know this whale.
Aye, Queequeg. The harpoons lie all twisted and wrenched in him. My harpoons. Death and devils is Moby Dick, you've seen.
Captain Ahab, wasn't it Moby Dick that took off your leg?
Aye, Starbuck, Moby Dick dismasted me, brought me to this dead stump I now stand on. Aye, and I'll chase him round Good Hope and round the Horn and round the Norway maelstroms and through hell's flames before I give him up. And this is what you've shipped for, men, this alone, to chase that white whale on both sides of land and over all sides of earth till he spouts black blood and rolls fin out. What say ye, men? Will ye splice hands on it? But watch this long face about, Mr. Starbuck. Are you not game for Moby Dick?
I came here to hunt whales, Captain Ahab, not my commander's vengeance. How many barrels of oil will your vengeance yield, Captain? To be enraged with a dumb brute that smote you from blind instinct. Madness, Captain Ahab. Blasphemy.
Talk not to me of blasphemy, man. I'd strike the sun if it insulted me.
God keep me. God keep us all.
The crew, Starbuck, the crew. Are they not one and all with Ahab in this matter of the whale?
It's gold, I tell you!
Such a crew seemed specially picked and packed by some infernal fatality to help Ahab to his monomaniac revenge. By what evil magic their souls were possessed, that at times his hate seemed almost theirs, the white whale as much their insufferable foe as his. All this to explain would be to dive deeper than Ishmael can go.
Stewards, the wine! Drink and pass. Every last man drink with me from this flagon to celebrate our bond. Round with it, round. Short draughts, long swallows, men. It's as hot as Satan's hoof. Advance, she-mates. Cross your lances full before me. You too, Starbuck. Well done. Now let me touch the axis, the exact center point of your crossed lances. If you three had but once taken the full force, then mine own electric thing would have leaped out of my fingers and dropped you dead. Now, my harpooneers, cut your seizings and draw your poles. Careful, stab me not with that keen steel. Turn your harpoons upside down and present the sockets to the cupbearers. Now, hold them out to me while I fill. Queequeg, Testigo, Daggoo. Now, my harpooneers. 3 to 3 ye stand. Commend the murderous chalices. Yon ratifying sun now waits to sit upon it. Drink, ye harpooneers. Drink wine from your own harpoon sockets. Drink and swear death to Moby Dick. Death to Moby Dick! God hunt us all if we do not hunt Moby Dick to his death!
I, Ishmael, was one of that crew. My shouts had gone up with the rest, and stronger I shouted, and more did I hammer and clinch my oath because of the dread in my soul. A wild, mystical, sympathetical feeling was in me. Ahab's quenchless feud seemed mine.
It's advertised in Boston, New York, and Buffalo. 100 hardy sailor boys are wailing for to go. Oh, blow you in the morning, blow you in right-ho. All the way to running gear and blow, boys, blow. The skippers on the afterdeck are running in and out. He says we'll take 400 whales before our 6 months out. Oh, blow you in the morning, blow you in right-ho. All the way to running gear and blow, boys, blow. And after he is ours, my boys will bring him alongside, then over with our blubber hooks and rob him of his hide. Hey, blow you in the morning, blow you inside ho, all the way to running gear and blow, boys, blow.
One of the wild suggestions to be linked with the white whale was the unearthly conceit that Moby Dick was ubiquitous, that he had actually been encountered in opposite latitudes at one and the same instant of time.
Advertised in Boston, New York, and Buffalo, 100 hearty sailor boys are wailing for to go.
Not only ubiquitous, but immortal. That though groves of spears should be planted in his flanks, he would still swim away unharmed. Or if indeed he should ever be made to spout thick blood, such a sight would be a ghastly deception. For again, hundreds of leagues away, his unsullied jet would once more be seen. It was not so much his uncommon bulk that distinguished him from other sperm whales, but a particular snow-white wrinkled forehead and a high, pyramidical white hump. When swimming before his pursuers, he had several times been known to turn round suddenly and, bearing down on the hunters, smash their boats to splinters. Such seemed the white whale's infernal forethought of ferocity that every dismembering or death he caused was regarded as having been inflicted not by a brute monster, but by an intelligent agent. Judge then to what pitches of inflamed, distracted fury the minds of his more desperate hunters were impelled. A certain captain, seizing a knife from his broken prow, had dashed at him, blindly seeking with a 6-inch blade to reach the fathom-deep life of the whale. And then it was that suddenly sweeping his sickle-shaped lower jaw beneath him, Moby Dick reaped away this captain's leg as a mower a blade of grass in the field.
No! What I've dared, I've willed. And what I've willed, I'll do. They think I'm mad. Starbucked, huh? Yes, I'm demonic. I am madness maddened. That wild madness, that's only calm to comprehend itself. It was prophesied that I would be dismembered. I now prophesy that I will dismember my dismemberer. And prophet and fulfiller all in one. That's more than ye great gods ever were. I would not say as schoolboys do to bullies, pick on someone your own size. No, you've knocked me down, and I'm up again. And now ye have run away and hidden Moby Dick. The path to my fixed purpose is laid with iron rails, whereon my soul is grooved to run over unsounded gorges, through the rifled hearts of mountains. Nothing's an obstacle, nothing's an angle to my iron way.
There she blows! There! There! She blows! There she blows!
Where away?
On lee beam, 2 miles off. Whole school of them.
Quick, Stuart! Time!
Lower away then, do you hear? Lower away there, I say!
Spread yourselves! Give way, all 4 boats! You, Flask, pull up more to leeward.
Aye, aye, Mr. Starbuck! Lay back! There she blows right ahead, boys! Lay back! Give way, Mr. Stubb!
Aye, Mr. Flask! Pull, my fine hearts alive! Pull, my children! Pull, my little ones! Why don't you break your backbones, my boys? Pull, then, pull! Here, every mother's son of you, draw his knife and put the blade between his teeth. Aye, that's it! Start her, my silver spoons!
Let all your crew pull strong, Mr. Stubb!
Pull, then! Pull!
There's hotheads of sperm head, and that's what you came for. It's not Moby Dick. Sperm's the play. This at least is duty. Duty and profit hand in hand.
Every man look out along his oars!
You, quick, stand up! Stand up! It's time to kill a fish yet before the squall comes. Spring! That's his hump! There! Give it to him, Queequeg!
The cries of the headsmen and harpooneers, the shuddering gasps of the oarsmen, the wondrous sight of the ivory Pequod bearing down upon her boats with outstretched sails like a wild hen after her screaming brood, all this was thrilling. Not the raw recruit marching from the bosom of his wife into the fever heat of his first battle. Not the dead man's ghost encountering the first unknown phantom in the other world. Neither of these can feel stranger and stronger emotions than he who for the first time finds himself pulling into the charmed circle of the hunted sperm whale.
Right this way, boys. And you're going with it away. Hold him! Pull back! You'll have a lovely steak for supper, Mr. Stubbs.
The red tide now pours from all sides of the monster. His tormented body rolls, not in brine, but in blood. And all the while, jet after jet of white smoke agonizingly shoots from the spiracle on the whale's head. And now, abating in his flurry, the whale once more rolls out into view, surging from side to side, spasmodically dilating and contracting his spout hole with sharp, cracking, agonized respirations. And last, gush after gush of glotted red gore, as if it had been the purple dregs of red wine, shoots into the frightened air, and falling back again, runs dripping down his motionless flanks into the sea. His heart has burst.
There are certain queer times and occasions in this strange mixed affair we call life when a man takes this whole universe for a vast practical joke, with this joke at nobody's expense but his own.
Quick, tell me honestly, is it always like this?
Always.
That's what it means to go whaling?
Whaling, always.
And you are telling me that it's normal for an oarsman to break his own back, pulling himself backwards directly into death's jaws? I mean, attacking a whale like that?
Normal.
Well, in that case, last will and testament being of sound mind and body.
What writing?
I'm drawing up my will. You will be my beneficiary.
Not understand.
Look, I hereby bequeath my worldly belongings, that is, the contents of my rucksack and my 275th part of the Pequod's earnings, to Queequeg in the likely... No. Inevitable event of my death while whaling. I'm putting this in my sea chest, so you'll know where it is.
It's good.
Now, here goes for a cool, collected dive at death and destruction.
Hoist up the cutting tackle! Don't let it drop or Mr. Stump won't get his blubber steak tonight! Look sharp there, man! Look sharp! By those lines!
Tied by the head to the stern and by the tail to the bows, the whale now lies with its black hull close to the ships, and seen through the darkness of the night, the two, ship and whale, seem yoked together like colossal bullocks.
A steak before I sleep. Hey, quick. Overboard you go and cut me one of his flanks. And cook. Now, when you cook me a whale steak from my private table, I'll tell you how to do it. Hold the steak in one hand and show a live coal to it in the other. That undish it. All right. Oh, and another thing. Tomorrow when we're cutting in the fish, be sure you stand by to get the tips of his fins and then pickle them. I want cutlets for supper tomorrow night and mid-watch. Yep, stop and whale balls for breakfast. Don't forget, whale balls for breakfast.
Steak.
That a man should eat a newly murdered thing of the sea, a creature that feeds his lamp with oil, and, like Stubb, eat him by his own light, is a thing you landsmen regard with abhorrence. Does not that sight take a tooth out of a cannibal's jaw? Cannibals? Who isn't a cannibal? Go to the meat market on a Saturday night and see the crowds of live bipeds staring up at the long rows of dead quadrupeds.
Aye, that's good.
But Stubb, he eats the whale by its own light, you say? And that is adding insult to injury, is it? Look at the knife handle in your hand, my civilized and enlightened gourmand, dining off that roast beef. What is that handle made of? What but the bones of the brother of the very ox you are eating? And with what quill does the Secretary of the Society for the Suppression of Cruelty to Ganders formally sign his circulars? Nor is Stubb the only banqueter on whale's flesh this night. Mingling their mumblings with his own mastications, thousands on thousands of sharks, swarming round the dead Leviathan, smackingly feast on his fatness. It should be here pointed out that the whale has an entirely non-valvular structure of blood vessels, so that when pierced even by so small a point as a harpoon, a deadly drain is at once begun on his whole arterial system. And so vast is the quantity of blood in him, and so distant and numerous its interior fountains, that he will thus keep bleeding and bleeding for a considerable period. The sharks are never in gayer or more jovial spirits than around a dead sperm whale moored by night to a whale ship at sea. If you have never seen that sight, then suspend your judgment about the propriety of devil worship and the expediency of conciliating the devil.
In overseeing the pursuit of this whale, Captain Ahab had performed his customary duty. Yet now that the creature was dead, some vague dissatisfaction or impatience or despair seemed working in him, as if the sight of that dead body reminded him that Moby Dick was yet to be slain.
Ship ahoy! Have you seen the white whale?
Answer me! What ship are you? Ahoy there! This is the Pequod, bound round the world. Tell them to address all future letters to the Pacific Ocean. And this time, 3 years, if I'm not at home, tell them to address them. Swim away from me, do you? Swim away from Ahab. He will not speak with Ahab. Up, helm! Keep her off round the world!
And so, with his ivory leg inserted into its accustomed hold, and one hand firmly grasping a shroud, Ahab for hours and hours would stand gazing dead to windward, while an occasional squall of sleet or snow would all but congeal his very eyelashes together. The ivory Pequod has been turned into what seems a slaughterhouse. Every sailor a butcher. You would have thought we were offering up 10,000 red oxen to the sea gods.
Hand me along my cutting spade, Mr. Stubb.
All right, grasp the handles, Mr. Starbuck. Reach out.
I have it. You, on the foredeck. Take this rope and hold me fast.
The huge lower block of the tackles is swung over the dead whale. And now, suspended in stages over the sides, Starbuck and Stubb, the mates, armed with their long spades, begin cutting a hole in the body for the insertion of the blubber hook.
Lower your lantern so I can see my way to the body.
Mr. Starbuck, sir. To your left a bit, just above the side fin.
There, I've made an incision. Guide me along now, Mr. Stubb.
And how will so clumsy and weighty a mass as that same blubber hook get fixed in that hole? It is going to be inserted there by my particular friend Queequeg, whose duty it is as harpooner to descend on the monster's back for this purpose.
Here, Ishmael, him.
We are some 10 feet below the level of the deck.
Slow.
Poor Queequeg flounders about, half on the whale and half in the water, as the vast mass revolves like a treadmill beneath him.
More. Yeah, well, lava.
You've seen Italian organ boys holding a dancing monkey by a long cord? Just so, from the ship's steep side, I'm holding Queequeg down here, just at the edge of the water, by what is technically called in the fishery a monkey rope, attached to a strong strip of canvas belted round his waist, and on the other end, to me. So that, for better or worse, we two, for the time, are wedded. Should poor Queequeg sink to rise no more, then both usage and honor demand that instead of cutting the cord to free myself, it should drag me down in his wake. Queequeg is my own inseparable twin brother.
Look out there! Where is it?
It remains to be said that sliding overboard into the sea is not the only jamming jeopardy he is exposed to. The sharks, more freshly and keenly allured by the blood flowing from the whale's carcass, swarm round it like bees a beehive. And right in among those sharks is Queequeg, pushing them off with his floundering feet. In no way can I get rid of the dangerous liabilities which this bond of rope entails. My own individuality is now merged in a joint stock company of two people. My free will has received a mortal wound. Someone else's mistake or misfortune might plunge innocent me into unmerited disaster and death. Jerking my Queequeg now and then from between the whale and the ship, threatening to jam him, yet only having the management of one end of the rope, I know now this is the precise situation of every mortal that breathes. To be bound irrevocably by some kind of monkey rope or another to someone else.
Haul
her up! Pull in the chains! Pull, man, pull!
After he is our, my boys,
We'll pull him alongside, over with our blubber hooks, and rob him of his